I suppose. I suppose that's what we'll do.
Hello and welcome, everyone. We are down one Ninbins due to, I would assume, technical issues. But the show goes on anyways. I'm not going to say it must go on because sometimes it doesn't have to. But thank you for joining us, all of you in chat. Anyone watching the VOD, thank you for joining us as well. And as always, this episode of Beacons is brought to you by Syrinscape for the soundboards. No, it is not brought to you by Rice Krispies. Not officially, but I mean, if they want to.
We wish we could.
If they want to, hit me up. We'll make that the official show snack. Why not? THC says Uncrustables as well, maybe. Yeah. But that said, it's brought to you by Syrinscape for the soundboards, which you'll hear a bit of throughout the show, and also by RPG Hour Studios, who are always wonderful and constantly producing these episodes, and so on and so forth. Now, before we get started, I would like y'all to introduce yourselves. So we'll go in order, in overlay order, Sin, Rainy, and Ro.
This is a poor choice. An absolutely poor choice. However, hi, my name is Sinziek. I am a variety streamer, mostly I play story-driven games and multiplayer games for Shenanigans on Mondays and Tuesdays around here. You can also find me on Twitter ranting at racist and misogynistic people and or talking about game design and world building, because that's the kind of stuff that we enjoy around here. And also, today I am playing Rue, who is our teleporting and somewhat displaced ball of shenanigans. That being said, my pronouns are he, him. Rue's pronouns are he and they. And now back to Bob at the radio station. What's going on there, Bob?
I mean, I hate to tell you, but Bob's out. Hi, I'm Rainy. You can catch me at twitch.tv / Rainy Keys, Rain Keys on Twitter, and just got done with a traditional art stream, so if you do decide to check out my Twitch channel, that will be the most recent VOD. I was painting a four-piece panel thing for a senior exhibition because that's just me. Hi, I also play Alyssa Vesper. She is our masked archer, and, you know, general, I talk to the dead, don't really bother with the living kind of vibes. And both of our pronouns are she, her. And now on to, I guess, Jim with the weather.
Of all the names, really? Okay. Well, instead of Jim, you get Monroe. Hi there, I'm an artist and a game designer. My pronouns are he, they, interchangeably. You can find me on Twitter at MonroeRow98, doing whatever I'm in the mood for that day. And I'm playing Danica, the pyromancing glassblower, whose pronouns are she, they, interchangeably.
And last but not least, I am the mastermind of replacing all of your boring old newscasters with all of my various non-white queer friends.
Every single one of them is useless, okay?
Every single one of them is useless, yes. I am Eric, aka Eldritch Crow. I use he, him pronouns, and I'll be your narrator for the day, as usual. So, let's get into a bit of a recap, shall we? Last time, our heroes, question mark, managed to discover that Zira Darkfang, leader of their expeditionary force, stole the crystal from the Twin Creeks beacon and allowed the Bane Horde attack on the town to happen. With some creative applications of magic and channeling a few spirits, they all managed to summon Zira's ancestors, including, ancestors and
Grandma.
past younger sibling, to admonish her for her particular betrayal. The party was appalled to discover that Zira had done it in order to earn a bit of recognition, and that a figure with fiery hair and the ability to dreamwalk had set Zira up to take the fall. They bound her in chains and arrived back at the brink, which is the split fort on the edge of the shattered plateau. Now, we hand-waved this a bit last session, but it is assumed that y'all used a bit of dream walking to retrieve the crystal that had been hidden in her particular portion of the dream realm. And you handed her over to Para Darkfang, her older sibling and leader of the Guardian Corps, for, well, punishment. Para has officially disowned Zira as a result of last session, and has ordered her brought back to Crestfall to complete her sentencing with the rest of the luminaries of the Gleam Wardens. And you have all
Para said, take the nameless last week. Lord have mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Take the nameless.
And now, we open up with Para effectively asking you all to be part of the escort back to Crestfall. You are all, those of you that are members of the Gleam Wardens at least, are all set to take a bit of a break after this expedition, so you'll be kept on the plateau and able to take jobs if you feel like it for the Gleam Wardens, but you don't have to. And since Para knows you're heading back, you've been asked to do this particular job of making the delivery, so to speak. So, you are all currently at the brink. Crestfall is only about a day away. It's a very short travel. So, it's up to y'all. Is there anything you'd like to do before leaving the brink?
Can I finally get that takoyaki I was looking for?
I mean, the food cart vendor would have come with you, so yeah, probably.
That's it. I'm good. I'm also noting a certain lack of disappearing, and that probably means I'm still quote unquote on vacation.
Mm-hmm. For the
Have a good
purposes
vacation.
For the purposes of this session, we'll say that Barry is requested by some of the engineering corps and is off doing work for the quartermaster.
Well, I don't know anything about prison detail, so I'm just gonna go do something else. But if you need me, I'm pretty sure you'll know how to find me.
Okay, fair enough. As for prison detail, Danica or Alyssa, since you two are the members of the Gleam Wardens that are sort of taking point on this, a cart is brought out that has a jail cell built into it, as one would expect. And it's being led by a couple of donkeys. You know, they aren't quick, but they are sturdy and can pull that sort of thing.
Can I, before we, this could be at any point, can I look for Para?
Yeah, the brink is a pretty standard built fort, with the exception that it is split between the lower portion and the upper portion with the elevator. So you kind of head around and you can find Para sitting basically in his office, for lack of a better word.
If I understand correctly, we're kind of at the top of a plateau, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this area is relatively flat, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. What's the tallest point here?
The tallest point would be the wall of the brink.
I was
Okay.
gonna say probably like one of the guard towers on the brink wall would be a little bit taller because of a canopy to shade from the sun.
Basically.
Well, I mean, I might not want the shade, though, but I appreciate
No.
the thought.
I was thinking like the tallest point, as in you being on top of the canopy, tallest point because it's only marginally taller. But you find your perch.
I would like
However
to.
you want to find your perch.
I would like to be there.
Okay, you are on top of one of the guard towers, and you can see sort of this sprawling expanse below you. It is still fairly early in the morning, so down below you can see that there's a layer of mist coating the ground for sure. It gives everything below you a slight hazy quality, almost like you're at an even greater distance. I don't know if Rue has any issues with heights.
No.
Okay. You can imagine that more than a few of the refugees you've brought up are having a good sense of vertigo, seeing this scene from above.
Oh, okay. So it's pretty high up, is what you're trying to say.
Oh yeah,
That's good. It gives me a nice solid vantage point for basically anything. So, if I have a WandaVision moment, at least I'll be able to see the whole city and know where things are, and that's the important thing.
Mm-hmm. So, if you're looking off to the east, which is, or probably more be northeast now that I think about it, the brink is sort of on the southwestern edge of the plateau, and so you can look west and you can see where previously last episode I mentioned sort of that darkened citadel that seems to be eating light off in the distance towards the center of the continent. From here you can also see, with a bit of extra height you have, the edge of a desert to the kind of southwest. To the north you can see what appears to be a mountain spewing ash, and to your east you can see the starts of a town and this very, very bright borealis light coming from the center of it.
Okay. Some pretty interesting things up here. Very dramatic.
It very is. So, Rue, you're camped out up there. Danica, you wanted to go find Para.
Mm-hmm.
Para is currently, yesterday you saw Para in basically like his war gear, like he was wearing his armor and he was completely decked out. He had his hair back. Today he appears to be more focused on some of the bookkeeping for the keep. He's doing a bit of paperwork. He has his hair tied back. You can see the two spiraling, what look like almost elk horns or deer horns coming up and then curling back a little bit. You can see he's got his cat-like eyes, and he is just in sort of very loose, slightly open shirt that has the cuffed sleeves, and just sitting behind his desk. It's a very simple and sparse office for sure.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of walk, like, not quite in the room yet, but I'm just gonna, like, knock on the side of the entrance.
Ah, Danica, come in. Is there something you need?
Well, I was just wondering, do you know where my sister's stationed at the moment?
Give me a moment. Ro, did you name your sister?
Yeah, Leona.
Leona. Thank you very much for that reminder. He just says, Leona, and he shuffles some papers around, and you can see he's going through sort of the current assignments that are out currently. And he just says, Leona's on escort for the supply run back to Crestfall. You might run into her on the way back, but I wouldn't expect it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And, this probably isn't what you want to hear, but I'm sorry.
He kind of sits back in his chair a moment, and you can see that there's a point where that grief comes back into his face. And he just says, I appreciate the sentiment. It'll take some time, but I'll be all right.
And I kind of just take it, like, let out a deep sigh and just bow in thanks and turn around and leave.
He just nods and goes back to his paperwork. Alyssa, how are you spending your morning at the brink, do you think?
Probably in the medical ward.
Okay. You do notice that there are a few minor injuries that come in from the refugees. For the most part, the injuries here are a bit more long-term. People who have come back from scouting expeditions that were wounded and so on. So whatever healing you can give is appreciated, for sure. And while you're working, A voice just says, "You always take me to the most lovely places."
You know, if you were to really complain, I could just leave you at home.
Nice try. We both know you wouldn't.
Keep on testing me and we might.
There's no flickering image, but you definitely get the sense within your head that they are smirking at you.
Alyssa just shakes her head as as this conversation probably happens while she was just running to the back, getting some more bandages and cleaning out some bedpans and the like.
Mm-hmm. So, you all go about your days. Rue, fortunately, you don't experience any other visions. Unfortunately, you're still here. Even by the time you finish your meditation, you kind of quirk one eye open, hoping.
Oh, like this point, I'm just kind of resigned to it. This is very much the, like, when you say, is Rue in the middle of downtime? Is that what Rue's doing? The thing that I need you to picture is laying in a field or lying in a tree or laying back on a roof and either watching the clouds go by if it's daytime, or people watching if it's afternoon, or watching the stars at night if it's nighttime. Like, it's just, I'm out here and just observing things.
Fair enough.
There will probably be feels related to that later, but we're not here for that today.
In your, shall we say, observations, you would see the cart with the jail cell built into it get pulled out to the front of the brink, with a lone figure bound in chains inside. Now, I would assume Danica, Alyssa, and probably a few other Gleamwardens, actually, are going to be rotating on watch for this, and driving the cart and things like that, because many of the refugees are also going with you all. Zira is just considered a priority at this point.
I'm assuming that that these two, speaking of Danica and Alyssa, would know how to find me if they needed to.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
So which one of you would go to find Rue, is my question. Would
Probably.
either of you find Rue, or would this just happen as like a random arrow thuds into the stone next to Rue's head?
No,
A little
actually,
note tied to
Alyssa
it.
would.
No, Danica would too.
No. Oh, I guess Danica would go, but like as Danica leaves, Alyssa would probably just like mark where Rue is, write something down, tie it to an arrow, and just let it go.
Okay. I'm not gonna make you play a check for this because it's just funny. Rue, you're sort of sitting there peacefully, and you hear the little ding, and next to you, embedded in what is basically the mortar between two stones, is one of Alyssa's arrows with a small note tied to it.
All of that is on the message is Danica's coming to get you.
Danica's so in her own head, she wouldn't even notice anything. She would just keep going.
No, it would
like,
zip right past Danica
Yep.
too.
Okay. Well, I suppose let's have some fun with this. And I would kind of stand up on the tower, stretch my arms out real wide, kind of, stretch a little bit, and then turn around and just fall backward off the tower, plummeting toward town.
Okay, so Danica, you get up to the top of the tower, somewhat
Wait,
like...
How did you climb up to the top of this tower looking for me?
Yeah?
Yeah, that's what
Because
Alyssa
I'm
said.
a-
Danica's coming to get you. Is she
I don't know
coming
what-
up?
I don't know how, it's one of those, I don't know how soon the arrow arrives versus how long it takes for Danica to get there. So I'm assuming that Danica is going.
It probably gets there right before, like a good 3 to 5 minutes before Danica gets up there, due to
If we-
time, speed and the fact that Alyssa is fighting an uphill, so she would have to aim like super high into the air to get there.
Also, just pointing it out too, Danica has to go upstairs.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things where, depending on when the arrow gets there, if I see this, and I'm just like, well, okay, and I'm just going to immediately fall off the tower, does Danica not at any point see this lone figure streaking toward the ground from one of these towers before she goes, let me climb the stairs? Surely that's not Rue. Who would be doing this?
No. There's a point where Danica sees you, except it's out the window of the tower, about a third of the way up.
Yeah,
So-
I was gonna be like, I'm probably like a quarter of the way up or halfway up, and I
Yeah,
just like,
like not that
Okay, so
not
when you-
that far, but still, you know, you've already done like 1 or 2 flights of stairs.
So by then it would just be Danica just watching, like, it would be like one of those dramatic things where it's just like wind, obviously. I'm like falling down at an accelerated rate, and then there's this slow down where it's kind of like Danica going, wait, is that? And I'm just
Yep.
beside as I'm like plummeting toward the ground. And then I would like to use Limited at like the relatively last moment, because listen, I don't actually want to die, but you know,
I mean, timing your fall anyways with your limits at the almost last moment is better than at the earliest moment, because you would still have to fall the rest of the distance from your port.
So
correct.
So I actually imagine this funny moment of Rue is falling upside down, so the peace sign is upside down as he passes Danica on the way down, but then you use your liminence and your teleportation basically spits you out right side up on the ground doing a peace sign in front of Alyssa.
I have a question. Did Rue bring the arrow back?
You have really nice handwriting.
Thank you.
this is the moment. As much as Danica's in a brain fog for a split second, she has enough thought to just be like, do I need to learn how to fly now?
I love it.
I love it. We love it.
Now,
So moments later, when Danica comes downstairs,
Danica, I imagine, is slightly out of breath from taking the stairs like multiple at a time at this point.
Yeah.
But also I want to point out that like there were a bunch of people prepping to leave, so there's like dozens of people that just saw Rue pull this stunt like something out of a
And
circus.
just that very cool handoff to Alyssa as well. Just like that, just very... I just want to point out how weird this is for Alyssa to be like just this cordial. And Rue is the only person she's been this cordial to in this performance.
And as Danica walks up, you just see the very bushy eyebrowed Eustace brought up to you, Rue, and he just says, "How did you do that without breaking your knees?"
practice, my good sir. Practice.
He just like pauses a second and he just says, "I ain't ever known teleportation magic to kill momentum. That breaks some physics."
Alyssa
Well,
is very calmly, because you don't know the right kind of teleportation.
Eustace, you are a very interesting one, knowing these things about physics and falling. That practice came with also having to learn a bit of physics to not break a bone. Have you tried doing this before?
He just looks at you and he says, "No, but I've had friends."
Sounds like you have some very interesting friends, Eustace. I would like you to tell me about them one time.
I'm
Maybe
sure they'd
we'll-
like me to talk about them too.
So there was an arrow with a note attached to it. Very, I guess, classic assassin vibes, I would say. But what was the occasion?
And then Alyssa just walks off.
That wood's not much for talking, is she?
Not unless she's holding a whole bunch of feathers. She talks a lot at those times.
Well, all right. If you need a cart to ride in on the way to Crestfall, you're more than welcome.
I might be taking you up on that, if you would not mind.
That's entirely up to you.
Danica, the note said you were here to come and get me, so for what reason? Oh, honey, breathe for a moment. Breathe deeply in through your nose, out through your mouth.
We're gonna go.
Wait, do we have to go somewhere? I thought this is where we were supposed to be. Oh wait, have they drafted us into doing something else?
No. I don't think you technically have to come with us. I don't think so.
But you're here anyway, probably with the question. Does that question somehow sound like, would you mind going anyway?
Yeah, she actually does laugh, and she's like, well, I mean, your company's most valued.
I will only agree to this if you provide snacks.
Pulls out my pack of, like, trail mix.
I've got dates if you want them.
I think that'll do from both of you. I'm pointing the last bite of a kebab that I've been chewing at the top of the tower to both of them.
Rue, it is probably at this point that you notice something a little bit odd. You are, like, when I say that the plateau is high up, I mean, like, imagine heights equivalent to the wall from Game of Thrones.
I don't know that point of reference, so I'm just going to use the Empire State Building.
Probably a solid half to 3/4.
Okay.
So, you, with your particular skills and knowledge of wind magic and air, you should be having trouble breathing right now. But the atmosphere this high up is fine. In fact, it's almost perfectly temperate as well. And it's just something you notice from the quick change in elevation that you just experienced, that you're not breathing heavily or anything like that. So, with that, Zira is bound in chains inside this jail cell, looking a bit like a disheveled Azula.
Is it still the chains I melted?
It
is still the chains you melted because they couldn't get them off.
Because you melted them, which was a good choice. Didn't have to give him a chance to actually, let her out to redo the chains.
And then on the other side, they realized that your choice of melting the chains was probably better than using a lock that she could pick and therefore escape from. So it was genuinely the best way to go about it. So Zira is just sort of sitting there quietly, and she's bound in a way that she can sit comfortably so that she's not like losing feeling in any of her limbs or whatnot. But she is just sort of leaning up against some of the bars, staring kind of 1,000-yard stare-esque at the brink as you all start to head out.
Actually, Alyssa would just knock against the cage as she goes to take the reins of the donkeys and just very sort of eerily just, welcome to the road, sister. And take the reins and just snap the donkeys into motion with the rest of the train.
Zira just gives kind of a dark chuckle, and Danica, you would be in earshot for this. You would hear Zira just say under their breath, Siblings cast such deep shadows.
Sorry, what was that?
Siblings cast such deep shadows. And Danica, quietly, you know this is a dig at you. Zira knows you well enough.
Okay. At this point, what time of day is it?
It's about noon. By the time all the
Okay, so
preparations are complete.
It's bright. Cool. Then I'm gonna put on my goggles, which are these kind of brass metal. The glass is tinted this dark amber, so it almost looks black. They have like some
Not
micros.
glass blowers goggles. Not
And,
glass blowers goggles.
And they have some microscopes on them, but just gonna put them on so no one can see my eyes because they're so dark. People with normal vision can't see through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to walk away for now. No one can see me cry.
Oh.
Hey, Danica, where are you going?
I'm just away. I've I need to think for a bit, for a while, away, just walking.
Well, okay, but don't get lost out here because if you do, there's absolutely no hope for me.
I won't be far. I promise.
You know, here, going to do something a little unusual. Have this. I give her my practice sword.
Interesting.
Thank you. Why?
Don't worry about it. When you need the answer to that question, you'll know what the answer is.
Okay.
How are you?
From off in the distance, you can hear a very joyful Eustace just singing very off-key some road travel song that he knows. Oh,
Take me home, country road,
basically.
to the
Now
place.
I need to adjust. Give me 1
I
minute to adjust our
belong.
overlays.
West Virginia.
Boop, boop, boop. Quick, move things around.
Not used to sounding like an old version of Toad.
Oh no.
No.
We have an in bins. But also my cropping is now messed up. Oh no.
Oh, it's fine. We can fix it live. Welcome back, Barry.
We're doing it live. Do, do, do.
So while we're doing these things, allow me to say that for the people of the stream, recently, thanks to some commissions and some work by none other than the one known as Dyer or Basilisk online, if you happen to have Twitter, we now have art for all of our characters.
We have
and
lost our
that
weapons.
might mean that this will be things that you will see coming up later in a stream at some point or on some of our advertisements or Twitter materials or even on the starting and ending screens or what have you. So be on the lookout for those as we got approved to do all of those things.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, I've had our character cards running on the overlay. So people
Yep.
have already been able to see them, which is quite nice. We will probably have another Ninbins appear, so I'm going to leave the overlay the mess that it is currently, and we will fix it when Ninbins reappears.
Potentially. We're trying to make sure everything is up to go.
Yes. So we're just
Okay.
gonna.
What?
Yep.
Are we
I
gonna
will do things with the comms.
Thank you, sir. Thankfully, I can just kind of... Oh, no, didn't want to move the caption box. I wanted to move that box. There we go. All right, we're good for now. We'll leave it as is. That said, travel goes fairly uneventfully. As you're going across sort of these hilled plains, we'll say, you all do encounter some creatures, but they aren't much in terms of like a fight or anything like that. In fact, a few of them are mostly just like they're floating plants, almost like balloons, and honestly, you're able to just let them pass on by or push them out of the way without much trouble. You do see a couple of what look to be horses off in the distance, though none of you know how they got up here. There's just
Alyssa just like stares and just as barbarians.
probably. And so there are a variety of creatures you see along the way. It hits about nighttime, and you all have to pause because it's still not quite safe to travel in the dark, so it's safer to just group up, you know, start a couple campfires and rest for the evening. Here we go.
How are we now?
Yay!
Better.
Yes.
Okay, I can hear, you can hear. Fuck it.
We
Lovely.
appreciate
So-
it. Welcome back to the land of kings.
I just
Thank
need to tweak.
I woke up like 2 hours ago and my monitor died.
Oh
So I've been
no.
running around my house trying to find an alternative and I just used my TV.
Always a
That
good
means I
idea.
had to move it.
Humans. I guess.
I'm incredibly large
So
now.
much. I'm sorry.
I mean,
Nins, in case you weren't listening, we are on the road, on the way back to Crestfall. Barry was requisitioned by the quartermaster and the rest of the engineering corps to just help out with stuff at the brink. And I think that's about it.
this is
Okay.
such an odd little shuffle to do. We have left off with you all escorting Zira, who
and
is
we're making
currently
capture.
who is currently in a jail cell that is part of a cart. So on and so forth. So,
Got a pair of new headphones.
Yep.
technology is fun that way.
It fits with the model. We'll do it live.
Yep, we're doing it live. So, that said, night falls, and you get to all see very bright stars above you. But for the first time in a while, those of you who were out in the Expedition Corps, and possibly for the first time ever, Rue, you get to see the Aurora Borealis. But not quite as you would expect it. You can actually see that it is almost... It's not crossing the sky, it is coming up like a fountain from the origin point of that bright light you saw from the top of the brink earlier.
So basically, there's light pouring out of a point that I saw at the brink earlier.
Yeah, so when you were looking off towards the town of Crestfall, you saw that bright kind of light, and now as night has fallen, you can see it spouting up into the air, and the northern lights cascading forth from it, I guess you could say.
Interesting. It's nice up here. I think everybody's going to like being able to live up here. Also, surprisingly, the air is not especially thin. That's nice.
Mm-hmm. Now, sorry, I'm just checking my notes. So, in the evening, is there anything anyone would like to do particularly with regards to your own downtime in the evening? with regards to any dream shenanigans that I would like to know about, that you feel the need to inform me of, etc., etc.
I would
Would
like to
there-
talk to Zira.
Would there be dream shenanigans? I don't think there will be any from me today, unless y'all drag me into some.
Understandable.
Alyssa's making her tent far out from the firelight, as usual.
Inins, do us a favor and tilt
Yes.
your camera up a little bit. We're missing about half of your
Oh, yeah.
face. There we go. Lovely. So, no dream shenanigans unless other players choose to cause them. Danica.
Yep.
Zira is not asleep. She appears to be head tilted back looking up at the sky, much akin to the way Rue was earlier. Just watching the lights.
Kind of just walk up to the to her cage. And I just go, I'm nothing like you.
No, I suppose you aren't, but circumstances. I heard your sister's vying for a spot in the big three. And she just kind of tilts her head towards you. Were you aware?
Yeah. And she's getting there on her own merit, not hurting people.
I suppose. And yet here you are, saving 200 people. Diving into the fire as always, and yet... Leona will get all the recognition as usual.
Because recognition doesn't matter to me.
She just finally locks eyes with you, and she just says, if that were true, then why are you trying to convince me? Maybe you should be talking to a mirror, not a jail cell. You say hello to Leona for me. I hear her and Charla are in a bit of a competition lately. You would know the big three, and specifically Charla, are the top three guardians under Para. And they are, to explain, these top three are not allowed to take jobs for the wardens in populated areas because their particular abilities lend themselves to collateral damage. So they are mostly sent out to do exterminations.
I would say, watch me be better, but that depends on how long you last now, doesn't it? And before I go, I'm going to just touch the bars she's leaning on and get them nice and toasty. And then walk away.
Red or black?
Black.
Crow did warn us there were NPCs prepped.
It's a spade. You
Bless a
hear...
witch's intuition. Okay.
You do hear a little bit of a sizzle, and she shifts uncomfortably. You also smell a bit of singed hair. Sin, you're muted.
Say, well, you know what they say about betting on black. You should.
Not wrong, not wrong. So, morning comes. Again, uneventful, and you all should reach Crestfall within about midday. Once again, we're going to take this from a bit of Roo's perspective, because you're the newcomer to the plateau. The last really interesting thing you'll notice is the closer you get to Crestfall, Roo, you would expect that light to get brighter to almost be unbearable. But it doesn't. In fact, it seems to get dimmer and more comfortable as you get closer.
What a strange place.
You also hear in the distance a little boom. And you look over and one of the kids has accidentally gone and popped what are known as bomb spores. And they effectively inhale hot air to keep themselves afloat and move around. But one of the kids was messing around, poking one with a stick and popped it accidentally. And Alyssa, you probably have to do a little bit of medical work on them because they look a bit like they ran face first into a cactus. Just because these things do have cactus-like needles, unfortunately. And then one of the parents then announces to the children that they won't be playing with the bomb spores anymore.
Alyssa just very softly as she is tending to the child. Let that mistake again, or else you're always going to be the one that everyone else will look to for what's not.
Oof. And a little kid, like you noticed, kid doesn't even shed a tear. There is a very high pain tolerance for this one. And they're just like, as like all the needles are getting pulled out. Yeah, you move on. Zira keeps her mouth shut for the rest of the trip. And appears to grow a little bit more tense as you get back to Crestfall. Now, the town itself is interesting. It is a town of about 5,000 people, which, you know, to us may not be very large, but still a fairly decently sized city for this continent. But the odd thing about it is all of the buildings are at most 2 stories, pardon me, and you notice they are new stone built on top of old stone, and there are half-crumbled pillars scattered along the roads. And from what you all can tell in the history of this place, it was at one point a city built within a cave system in this mountain. And then the cave system was obliterated when the crystal struck, and so it left ruins of the city behind. And Crestfall has been built up on top of those ruins and built into those ruins. So some of the stones of these houses are old enough to have cracks and moss growing between them. And then they've been patched up by pieces of wood and other pieces of stone as well. You see in the center of this city is a very large sapphire faceted crystal. The beacon of Crestfall. However, it is about 3 stories tall, and it comes to a lopsided point because part of it has been sheared off at a diagonal, and there are hairline cracks like a spider's web moving across it that refract light into the day sun. It's a beautiful sight. And as you all get to the edge of town, a cry goes up. And all of a sudden, the street lamps come on, despite it being midday. And music starts playing. And a celebration begins. Because the town, 1, is happy to have the Gleamboard expedition back, but 2, recognizes newcomers when they see them, and know that those newcomers are here for a dark reason, and so their welcome should be brighter from where they left. So, the town is bright and bustling. there are whispers that go up when people see Zira in the jail cell, and that cell is taken to the center of town, where you see the town square is built up around the crystal, and there is what's known as the Triune House, which is basically a longhouse / a council building, and you can all basically just see that going off. Food carts are brought out, some of the taverns open their doors, the marketplace is not really hawking its wares, but is actually like going to the refugees and saying, hey, what do you need? You look like you need a new shirt. You look like you need some new clothes. You look like you need, you know, any amenities they can spare are being spared. Next to the Triune House is basically the warden barracks. Wardens who don't necessarily have their own place to stay can go there, and you see a bunch of them flood out and welcome their old friends back, and that's where most of the whispers about Zira come from. Zira is led out of the jail cell and into the Triune House immediately.
As Alyssa probably helps the Zira's escort into the Triune House, she just like gives her a look. Any last words? Just in case.
Zira just looks at you and she says, no. Besides, with your abilities, they wouldn't necessarily be my last, would they?
I only talk to those who wish to. It's not my fault. I'm going to invade your family ancestors.
She just kind of curls her nose at that and is led inside.
I would like to note that Alyssa has left a note with Barry of essentially places to find her today, because after that interaction, she just like again does that whole melding into the shadows of the crowd and just going off to make her first stop.
Okay.
Which is a small little townhouse somewhere in the residential district.
Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. Barry, is there anything you would like to do immediately upon getting back to town?
I speak to the rice farmer whose rice I took before we left.
Okay.
And I say to him, I will find you at a later time with the information for your rice plot.
He looks at you, and we'll say his name is Marlo. And Marlo looks at you and just says, it is much appreciated. You've all been so kind. I can't imagine. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Ours is a shared fate. If one of us falls, then we all do, as you have seen.
And with that, Marlo is kind of immediately swept away by the townsfolk. And there is this kind of older woman who walks up to him and just says, well, you're a farmer, huh? You've got the look about you. We've got a few farms around town. We can hire you on. If you need a place to stay, we've got room. Come on. And she sort of takes him by the elbow and leads him away. That said, is there anywhere else you would like to go, Barry?
No, I stay because I'm never night. I don't necessarily need to sleep anywhere in particular. So I just have like a foot locker in the barracks next to a bed that often stays empty.
Fair enough. True. You watch this festival start almost immediately. The town just sort of comes alive around you. And some of the folks approach you saying, oh, do you need a place to stay? Are you looking for help? Because they see that your clothing's a little bit different, so they assume that you're just another refugee that was picked up along the way.
This is Crestfall, right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm just here helping my friends get from point A to point B, but thank you for asking. What's your name?
Oh, I'm Julia. I run the local bakery. If you need any food, come talk to me. Julia is very much this, it's hard to tell how old she is. Very elegant elven woman in simple garb, black hair tied back to keep it out of her face. You can tell she absolutely like works the bakery instead of just owns it. She's got she's buff in the arms and in the shoulders, but that's from hours of just working with doughs and things like that over the years. And she basically looks at you and says, and if you're looking to help your friends get from point A to point B, you may want to consider signing up with the wardens.
The Gleam Wardens?
Yes, there are folks who don't appreciate people helping for free around here, and the Gleam Wardens take them on as volunteers more to protect them from those folks. And she kind of nods her head over to this shorter dwarven man who is walking through the crowd and very boisterous. And you can see he's wearing what amounts to a Victorian tailcoat with cuffed sleeves and is in a full three-piece suit. Dwarves in this setting don't grow hair, they grow stone. And most of it is semi-precious, and you can see he has a beard of chiseled obsidian that goes up into sort of perfectly coiffed obsidian hair as well, and his eyes match. And he is going through and he's basically saying, if there's any manual laborers or whatever, he's shaking their hands and saying, oh, you should come and work for the mines. You know, we provide protection for people. You could also join the house guard. And Julia appears to not quite approve of this person.
Well, the people that I'm traveling with are a bundle of Gleam Wardens, so I think that'll probably protect me from that, but I appreciate the lookout. Also, do you make Danishes?
She looks at you and she just says, well, we might call it something a little different, but if you come along, I'm sure we can find one for you. She absolutely does make Danishes, she just doesn't know them by that name.
Okay, well, you know something, if I see something that looks like what I'm looking for, I'll just point it out. But, do the bakery and things.
Lovely. And she just guides you along. Now,
I'm gonna have pastries, okay? That is a thing. There's I think that's absolutely a thing for Rue. Like, it's just what is he doing snacking?
I mean, what Rue?
if you must find Rue, look for the food.
Yeah.
There are two ways to find Rue. Danica has one of them. The other one is there a place that has pastries?
I mean, poor man deserves pastries. They just got told, hey, have a nice vacation.
I'm on a.
God.
I mean, I'm having a vacation technically by their definition.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course not.
So, Rue, as you are guided to the bakery, you look across the street from the bakery and you see what appears to be a cafe or a tea house. And it is, it has this larger sort of Goliath-esque figure, to use a D&D term, out front. He's got slightly greenish gray skin, so possibly a little orcish descent in him as well. And he just says, all right, any newcomers in town, come on in. We've got free tea and lunch for everyone. And he's just yelling this across the crowd. He's also drowning out, to his frustration, the dwarvish man you saw earlier, and definitely pulling a lot more of the attention. And There is even a point where he wanders away from the tea house a little bit, and you can see he is following the dwarvish man through the crowd, purposefully drowning him out at some points. And then he returns.
I am going to, just for the briefest of moments, just to add to the nonsense, the next time I see him getting ready to shout something, I would like to use some air magic to amplify the sound of his voice. I would like to make him like a good 2 or 3 times louder than he normally is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm not gonna make you play a check for this because it's a small thing, but it definitely has an effect. And you can see that people hear about a hot meal and a free lunch, and everybody's mood lightens from this crowd. THC, I'm gonna ban you.
Oh no, not the ma.
Don't make me take your sword away, THC.
Put him in timeout.
For those wondering in chat, a dear friend just said, should we call vacation where you seem to be doing spurts of work with small bouts of relaxation a crocation?
Hey, if that's your kind of vacation, that's your kind of vacation. No tea, no shade. If that's the appropriate application of that phrase.
I mean, maybe, but you know something? I'm a hush is what I'm gonna do. Please continue.
Please school me on the appropriate application at a further date.
Danica, we'll get back to you.
Oh, okay.
You are outside the Triune House. You are welcome to go join the festivities. But word gets around the wardens very quickly that it is to be an open sentencing. Meaning that this will not be a decision made in private. Glebe wardens are asked to attend should they feel the need. Those of you who are also members of the wardens would eventually get this message as well. Though, Alyssa, you might get it a little bit late, considering how far away you decide to roam. Barry would absolutely get it almost immediately, because I imagine there's a small stop in at the barracks where you get the call.
I mean, Alyssa probably wouldn't care.
Fair?
Alyssa does not care.
That's fair.
Barry would turn up.
Okay.
Danica would too, and then look immediately relieved when she sees Barry.
Fair enough. And there's a certain crowd that filters in around you all as well. Now, the Triune House looks a bit like a courthouse or like a city council hall, really, where you have a raised dais with a number of seats behind a table, and the number of seats pertains to the number of luminaries in town. For the audience, luminaries are the leaders of specific segments of the Gleam Wardens, and also a title for leaders of aspects of the town. So, you know, civil engineering and all that jazz. In a U shape around that is a bunch of seating, and there's sort of a second balcony tier for seating as well. Mostly this comes in handy when they're making public decisions about, you know, new additions to the town and whatnot, but in this instance, the Gleam Wardens pack the place. And Zira is sitting in a chair on the main floor in the middle. Still bound in those chains. So, you two settle in. And you can hear the sounds of the festival going on outside. Kind of creating this dark, almost morbid contrast to what's going on in the building. And you see a number of figures walk out. You would recognize Chrysantheus, who is another Navinaiad who has basically a head of chrysanthemum flowers. She walks out and takes her seat at the head of the table. She is the luminary for the Christex currently. You see Aster Valeria, the header of the Order of Daemara, who is sort of the more, how do I put this? The public or unaffiliated craftsman of the town. So her and Chrysanthius sort of work together frequently. You see a younger orcish man who is very clearly an ember orc. They have a bit of fire elemental in them. He has hair that looks a bit like magma and veins that pulse gold under his darker skin. He's kind of a slate gray color, and his eyes have sort of a brighter gold molten pupil. Not pupil, iris, pardon me. You would know this as Murdoch Care. He's the youngest member of the Luminaries, and he's the head of the Scout Corps. So he would be Zira's direct commander, I guess you could say. And then you have a few other people come in who aren't luminaries, but who have been asked to sit in on things. You have this large, we're talking, 10 foot, 12 foot tall half frost giant walk in. You would know them as Kellic Maz. And Kellic is a local civil engineer, and he's well known, and people tend to take his counsel. He's a bit older, he's got some gray to the beard and things like that, and the luminaries tend to take a lot of his advice for dealing with social issues, which is why you imagine he's been invited. And then you see an elven woman, dark black skin. Hair is very clearly made of jade, so she has some dwarvish in her, and she has jade eyes as well. And her hair is longer, tied back, shoulder length, and she does not walk in, she floats in as she is sitting basically side saddle on a levitating sword that is basically a buster sword. You would both recognize her as Charlotte Kane, one of the big three. She appears to be taking she's taking the position of Para's representative in this. So she takes the seat that would normally be his. The sentencing begins, and I'm going to kind of speed through this because it's a court case. They bring up everything that happened. You are not asked to testify. They have everything in written reports, especially from Para, and thanks to that, you don't have to speak during this. But they do acknowledge you to Barry and Danica in the crowd as the people who discovered what was going on. The wardens around you, a few of them pat you on the shoulders. Danica, one of them grabs your wrist and gives you a squeeze, like, hey, good on you. And they all seem to be on your side in this. The public opinion of Zira tanks very quickly. And there is a point where Chrysanthius is asked to make the announcement, and she stands and she says, Gleam Wardens, one of our own has been determined a traitor. Just a thief, not just a killer, not just someone who has left those out to the dangers of the world, or one who has actively encouraged an attack by the Bane Horde. This is a first, and it will be a last. Zira, who is formerly of the clan Darkfang, you are to be exiled. You'll be given enough food and supplies for a week's travel, and then you will be expected to exit the plateau. And there is this point of silence. And Zira doesn't say anything. But a voice from the Gleam Warden sort of seating area speaks up. One whom you didn't see enter. And you hear, "Well now, hold on a second just there. Isn't that a bit harsh?" Danica, you would recognize this as Farron Telesir, one of the Esper Barons. This was the gentleman who was, who Rue saw speaking to the, laborers out in the festival. And he just says, "Now, Wardens, I understand your decision, but I would hate to see one punished for ambitions that have been executed poorly. It would be a shame to see such ambition go to waste for a lack of sense. Might I offer an alternative?" And Chrysanthius kind of quirks an eyebrow. Chrysanthius is known for being not light in her punishments whatsoever, but also not unduly heavy in them either. She tends to be very measured. And she says, "Make your proposal." And Farron just says, "Well, it is my understanding that young Zira here is quite an accomplished scout, and therefore exile might not be much of a punishment, considering she'd have the ability to survive. So instead, and I know this thoroughly, let her work for me. After all, the Darkfangs do have a notorious dislike for House Telesir, and I'm sure it would certainly grate on her for the rest of her days. She'll be a house guard, with no command, no recognition, but she at least will not go to waste." And Chrysanthius sort of gives a confused look, and then sits to confer with the rest of the luminaries.
In the background, I would say Rue is like, "What?" And then it's kind of like, "Wait, please don't tell me that this man just showed up here just to be petty and be like, well, you know something? Instead of sending you to a lifetime of exile, we're just going to sentence you to a lifetime of spite. You're going to have to wake up every morning and be nice to me. I get to be me, and you have to be you, and I don't think I could have asked for better revenge than this."
I mean, is spite its own exile?
Danica or Rue? Actually, no, Danica or Barry, pardon me, since you two are the ones more actively involved in this. One of you decide. Black or red?
Boys bet on black.
Always been a black.
All right.
The man said it.
Is that a red?
That is a red.
It is.
After a few minutes of conferring with each other, Chrysanthius stands and looks over at Farron and says, "While we appreciate your input, this is Warden business. Zira's to remain exiled. The sentence will be carried out in a day's time from the brink by Para. Good luck. And Chrysanthus says that directly making eye contact to Zira. Dismissed. And Chrysanthus steps away, and the luminaries step away, and the wardens speak to each other a little bit in the stands and start to filter out. Danica, Barry, Rue, is there anything any of you would like to do?
I need to be right back.
What does espionage do?
Espionage is, stealth. It's stealth, but also it is attempting to learn information, attempting to not be noticed, sneaking around and doing things. Your general eavesdropping, flipping through documents, breaking and entering, that sort of thing.
Because I would I'm not a telepath. I don't think I can read minds here, but I would like to figure out what Aaron's intentions were.
Okay. Farron is with a few of his house guards outside, and yeah, so I'll ask you to make an espionage check. What's your skill level for this?
1.
1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm gonna set this at a 1 because he's not really hiding anything, if that makes sense. He is who he is.
All right. We have here a jack of diamonds.
I have here a 2 of diamonds, so you win. So, you sort of step out into the entryway, and you can overhear his somewhat frustrated commentary to his house guards as, well, it seems we'll have to find someone else to work security for the upcoming event. Let's just see if we can wrangle some of the newcomers, I suppose. Anyone good with a blade? I know the wardens won't volunteer. I'll have to ask. Well, on to business then. And his guards sort of flank him and they start going through the crowd.
An event? You mean like basically the party that the town is currently having?
No, it seems he was referencing something else. But you don't get much more information than that.
I feel like Rue was just standing right next to him with a fan over his face. He was just like standing right next to the Esper Baron going.
Possibly.
Like, how shady does this man have to be to try and take an exile?
I mean, there was a certain degree of spite there, but a certain degree of necessity as well, it seems.
Well, there seems to be spite there, but like thinking about this, I'm just kind of, actually, hold on, let me see if I can get the prop. Give me a second.
In the meantime, can I retroactively requisition Zira before her sentencing? Sorry, not before her sentencing, but before she is actually exiled.
Yes.
So that we can retrieve this ether crystal.
Oh,
so there was something mentioned at the beginning of session that basically says we went and retrieved that off screen.
Yeah.
Okay,
you would have had more than enough time to do
I would like to
that.
requisition that ether crystal.
Oh, very well. That'll take a little bit of paperwork. You'll have to go to the barracks and fill that out.
I have proficiency in politics for this very reason.
Then you're more than able to speed along this bureaucracy and requisition the crystal.
Now, for me, it's interesting dynamics, because if this were to be sentenced where she were to work in the city, this wouldn't be just spite for her. It would be spite for her brother, too. Why does this man have such a dislike for this family? I'm curious, but also, it's that time in June. What?
No, I was just like, out of character. He said it himself. Both houses have hated each other. For what purpose, we don't know.
Now that's the part that I want to know. Like, what is the reason? But you want to know what? Julia said that she was going to make me a Danish, and I don't think I've gotten that Danish yet.
No, she would have offered to make you a fresh one, so would take a bit of time. So, Barry, you're more than able to get that crystal, and I assume you just stow it for working on it later.
Mm-hmm.
Very well. Alyssa.
Mm-hmm.
We have been away from you for a little bit. You said you were heading to a small townhouse in the residential quarter.
Yes, that's one of the 2 places that is on the list of where Barry can find Alyssa if Barry is in search of her.
So, my question is, are you going to visit them?
Yes.
Okay. So, you walk through sort of a quieter portion of town. Most of the people have been drawn towards the city center. And as you're going, red or black?
It's a 50-50 either way. I will have to say red.
So,
What did I get? Don't you just give me that head nod after you showed everybody else.
you got a red. So, as you are going, I imagine there's a bit of a desire to back out of this decision. And as you're going, you turn a corner onto the street where you know this townhouse is, and you are about to turn back around and leave when you bump into someone. And he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, dear. Oh, Melissa. Well, I'm glad you're back. You, is that what the ruckus has been in town? Oh, you have to come home. Berta will be absolutely overjoyed to see you." And this is Signe. This would be Aegon's dad.
Of course, I had to run into the death.
And he just says, "If you're not busy, come on home, say hi."
Sure. Sure. Sure.
And you just hear in your ear, "Do you really think he'd be able to get away?"
And Alyssa just very quietly under her breath nods when your father has the place. And she just like lets that trail off.
For your knowledge, his father is an atheling who effectively,
Very enthusiastic handhold are a thing, and she remembers nearly getting her hand crushed once.
yeah, he's an atheling, not in appearance. He looks like he might be half elvish, but he has a freakish level of strength to him, as his sort of magical mutation. Berta, on the other hand, is a small gnomish woman, and is very much overjoyed to see you. And you walk in, she says, "Oh, it is so nice to have you back again, Alyssa. Come in. And she just gives you a big hug, and it is that sense of, I imagine Alyssa feels they are almost too happy to see her.
It's always that uncomfortable. It's like just very uncomfortable. It's half the reason why Alyssa always turns around whenever she tries to make her stop here.
Mm-hmm.
Or just usually just takes off a particular jewelry item, drops it behind the gate, and ditches.
Now, as you are brought in, their house is fairly small. You're brought to sit basically at their kitchen table, and they ask you, questions about how the expedition went and so on and so forth, and all the things that happened. They ask you if you've been taking care of yourself, if you've been eating well. They go full parent.
Yeah.
There is a point, however, where you hear footsteps from the second floor come down,
Oh,
and you
oh no,
see
no.
who is Aegon's younger brother, Jasper. And he sees you, stops, just kind of gives a nod, pulls on his coat, and walks out. And Berta looks at you and says, "Oh, I'm sorry about him. It's, we understand why you're still wearing the mask, but for him, it's still just a reminder. He'll come around."
I don't expect anyone to come around. It is fine. Alyssa just like, as she's talking, is just like fiddling with the clasp of the pendant and just like gets it unhooked at that and starts to like, she like fishes through her shirt and just neatly piles it in and just sets it on the table. I'll leave him here. I need to get back to work at the cafe. It's been a while. The festival and refugees, they're going to need hands in the kitchen.
Signy just looks at you and he just says, "Oh, hold on a second. I don't know why you're leaving this here for us. That was a gift to you."
Just please. It's fine. I can. And like Alyssa's already on her way out. Just I'll come back for it later. Just take care of it.
Okay. And you leave your pendant behind.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on from that, Danica.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to rewind a moment. As you exit the Triune house after the sentencing, you look around and you see Charlotte Kane, whom you've never interacted with before, but she is staring at you intently. And she's wearing, similar to Farron, she's wearing sort of that Victorian tailcoat suit. However, hers is unbuttoned. The sleeves are pushed up on the jacket a little bit. She is floating again side saddle on this massive blade. And, you know, the shirt's unbuttoned, and she's just sort of staring at you, kind of like she recognizes you, but kind of not. And she floats over to you and she just says, "Sorry, darling. Have I danced with you at a party before? I could swear I know you."
I mean, I'm sure you've looked at my sister's face enough.
Yes. Oh, you're Leona's little sister. That explains it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me, Danica. Danica Dolcetto.
Oh, I'm glad to see someone else in the family got the looks and the brains. And she shakes your hand.
Thank you. And even in her fogged brain, there's a little, her freckles definitely darken a little bit with the blush.
And Charlotte just says, "Oh, I'll be in town a little bit, so, if you'd like to dance at a party later this evening, come find me." And she actually just floats off silently.
I just stand there for a second, and I just say, as fun as that be, I'm not in the mood for my sister to kick my ass.
Now, for a point, I'll say, you would know, just to explain, that Charla specializes in gravity magic, explaining the sword levitating, but also the fact that she can't really use her abilities outside of that in a populated area. And Charla and your sister have had some long-running competitions. For the most part, it's been your sister getting one-upped by Charla left and right. So, Danica. I hate to do this to you, but black or red?
Oh, God damn it.
You know what's coming. You set this up.
I did. Black.
I pulled the 7 of clubs. So I'm going to
I
ask...
hate to be an inconvenience. I hate to be a bother. I truly do. But also, I did ask for this pain that I'm about to suffer.
So, I'm going to give you... I'm going to give you a decision. Would you, or would you not, like to run into your sister at this point?
I would.
Okay. So, as you're standing there somewhat flustered, drifting through the crowd, you feel an arm wrap around your shoulders and say, "Hey sis, how you doing?"
Leo, hi.
So, expedition went well, I see.
You could say that.
Now, Leo is most likely a bit more lithe than Danica, I imagine, because it's not as... Leo doesn't do as much consistent work as Danica.
But she's
physically
taller.
speaking. She's definitely taller. She's got the same kind of red curly hair as Danica, but I think Leo would keep it cut a bit shorter, possibly. And
Yep.
she's got this mischievous grin on her, and she just says, "So I see you met Charla, huh? And how did that go?"
She offered to dance with me.
You better bring
Shut
a sword
up.
then.
Shut up. And kind of shove her off.
What? I'm not allowed to tease my younger sister? Come on.
And instead of saying anything, I kind of rushed her with a hug.
Oh, okay. There we go. There it is. And like, I imagine you're doing that thing where you're squeezing her a little bit too hard to get her to shut up.
Yeah.
And she's just like, "Okay, that's the ribs. All right." And she like pats you on the back of the head. She says, and like basically taps out. And when you let her go, she's like, "Ugh."
And she can see I'm crying now.
And she's just like, "Hey, buddy, what's tears for? Come on, come on." And she like gives you a genuine hug this time and just lets you like bury into her chest a little bit. And she just says, "Everything all right?
No.
You're looking a little... Come on. Place around the corner's giving out lunch. Come on, let's go grab a bite. Food'll help." And she kind of guides you over that tea house that Rue saw earlier.
And then it's kind of like on the way there, it's word vomit. Just word vomit.
Just explaining everything that happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Leo probably like just this time around the shoulders is walking with you, with her arm around you. And she basically says, "Oh, buddy, that's rough. I'm sorry about Zira." Leo is not the emotional support type.
No, she's not.
She really isn't. But she's also probably the person that is best for you to see at this point, because I don't think Danica could handle an emotional support person right now.
You're gonna have to support a lot of emotions.
Yeah, it's that thing of like, she's the perfect person for you to talk to because you know she won't fawn over you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she just says, "Well, all right, let's get in here. Let me get you some food so that you can kind of set yourself to rights, huh?" And as she guides you in, you see this very brightly clad figure, I'll say, who is swathed in various colors of paisley, is the best I could explain it. They're wearing a bright paisley vest that is purples and golds, and then they're underneath it wearing a separate paisley shirt that is like a button-up shirt. They look a little bit like a butler, but a butler who someone drowned in patterns. And they are
Chowder called. They want their stationary patterns back.
basically. And it's sort of this patchwork of different color variations going on. Like their vest is this purple and gold, but the shirt underneath it is in blues and whites, and the trousers match the shirt but doesn't match the vest, and it's all very odd, but it works on them. And you can see they're wearing this very bright gold eyeshadow and eyeliner, and they sorry, Sid, you got timed out. Hold on just a second. There. You should be good now. So you walk in and you see that they have a set of snake eyes. And they have a variety of piercings in their right ear, but none in the left. They're wearing a necklace. They are very bright and done up for this smallish town, I guess you could say. And their name is Kainos, and they are very clearly the proprietor of the place because they're directing the servers around. And Kainos sees you come in with like tears somewhat streaming down your face, and they just say, "Oh, no, come here, you." And like they actually like take your face in their hands and look you in the eye, and she says, or they say, no, let me see you. You have seen entirely too much over this trip. You need tea. And lets your face go and then marches back behind the bar and basically says, "All right, this one's on the house." And Kainos looks at Leona and just says, "You're still going to have to do some work to pay off your last tab." And Leona is just like shrinks a little bit. And Kainos just looks at her and says, "Oh, don't give me that. Last time you broke one of my tables." "I remember." And just points, as like one hand is pointing at Leona and calling her out, the left hand is brewing tea. Like there is just muscle memory motion going on, and they look over at you and kind of give you a once over, and they say, "Lavender and jasmine it is." Without even asking you what you wanted, they are more prescribing you tea at this point. And they go and make a blend and serve it to you. And then they say, "I'll be back with food in a moment." And very much the way Sin walks off camera, walks away.
So they sashay is what you're saying.
They sashay.
They strut.
They strut.
So you broke a table. What would Mom say?
"It was an arm wrestling competition."
I'm still telling Mom.
"You will do no such thing."
Oh, what are you, the boss of me?
Has Danica kept, I'm assuming, because this hasn't happened, that Danica still has my practice sword?
Yep.
And with that, Sir DM, I have a question I would like to ask you, but I will send this to you in a written form.
Oh.
Oh boy. I think at this point, I would imagine, as Kainos walks into the kitchen, she would probably like slip in to her usual spot.
Okay.
Trying very hurriedly to get rid of the veil and mask.
Oh, she's trying to get rid of them.
Yes, she never really works with them in the back. I think we've gone over this before.
I don't remember, but that might just be me.
Usually, I think we have it where usually in the back she typically just works with the 3 other
Right.
survivors.
So yeah. I'll
That facial expression tells me a lot of questions.
okay, then yes.
Okay, good to know. Thank you very much.
So Alyssa, you slip into the back, and Kainos has just come back to get a plate of food, and Kainos sees you and he says, "Oh, so glad you could join us. Going to be a pretty busy day, so prepare the larger pots. We're going to need to make some rounds of soup for people." And they also stop at the door and they're just like, "And we should start making some pasta. That'll get people fed."
Yeah.
And then goes back out with the plate of food. So, Rue, having answered your question, is there anything you would like to do or anything you would prefer to happen right now?
Wait, what's happening?
Rue, I
what are you
asked
doing?
you, having answered your question, is there anything you would like to do or anything specific you would like to happen currently?
Oh, not yet. This is just a point of awareness for things that'll happen later, I'm sure.
Very well.
You know, once we get the gang back together.
Very well. All right. So at this point in time, we're hitting a little bit of downtime, and it is just about time for us to finish up. So, I'm going to say I would like... Rue hasn't done one of these. I think Rue... Has anyone not made a red or black call this evening?
No, we've all made our red or black calls.
Alright.
I don't think I have.
Oh wait, no you haven't.
No, you haven't. Rue,
I have not. Yeah.
red or black?
Yes. Also black.
A 9 of spades. So, in that case,
Oh God.
I'm trying to decide exactly what I want to happen. I will say, Rue, as you are in the bakery, you encounter this very interesting figure. Interesting because he is not dressed quite like anybody in town. He has very much got an outsider's garb to him, the same way you do, but in a different vein. He's wearing this wide-brimmed hat, a pair of horn-rimmed glasses. He has sharp and pale elven features, and is wearing something of an overcoat despite the temperate weather. And he steps in, and he orders what amounts to basically a croissant. And he turns to you, tilts his head, and he just says, "Oh, well, aren't you interesting?"
Is this?
Well, about as interesting as anyone else here, I suppose.
Hardly. It's been a while since I've met a dreamwalker, but you do have the look about you.
Oh, do you mean like the fashion sense? Most of that I got from older forms of television.
And he just kind of... This figure smirks at you from beneath the brim of their hat, and he just says, "No. The magic, it's... to certain people, it leaves a bit of an effect. It's been a while, though. I'm glad I could encounter you. And he holds out a hand, but does almost a half bow in a very regal sense, I guess. That is very out of place. It would almost be like meeting someone who curtsies to you for being their pizza guy.
Ah. Well, I am glad I could be of assistance.
And he just shakes your hand lightly, and he says, "You can call me Venat."
Venat. Well, Venat, my name is Rue. It's nice to meet you.
I assure you the pleasure is mine, Rue. You've brought back some very pleasant memories.
Well, what brings you here to Crestfall?
Oh, I'm the town doctor. The unaffiliated with the Glade Warden's doctor, since some don't always like to go to the official.
I can understand that. Would you perhaps care to have whatever it is that you're ordering while I have a Danish?
I do believe I would.
Although, for some reason, they don't call those Danishes here. I never did figure out what they did call them, but eventually I was able to explain at least.
That's all right. Crestfall is, how do you say, a sheltered place. They don't exactly create terms for things they don't need. Then again, it's been a few hundred years since I've heard anyone call it a Danish, so... And he just takes a bite of his croissant.
Well, like, from what I can tell of his own, like, being an elf, he's probably also, like, one of the races that, lives for a very long time.
You know...
Or would I know that, like, okay, in this universe, are elves really long-lived? Or is there one of these, you look elvish, but elves don't normally live that long? What's happening here?
You immediately get the sense of what's happening here. One more red or black check. You have the sense that, like, yes, this person's an elf. Yes, they're maybe a little bit longer lived than the average person. You know, they might hit 100 or 120, but talking multiple centuries is a little bit.
I'll take a red here.
You guessed correctly. As he's speaking, you notice Venat has a set of elongated incisors. And he just says, "You have to walk with me, Rue."
Well, I suppose this is a good night for one. The temperature around here seems to be very pleasant. Unusually so.
It always is. Spring every day in Crestfall, my friend.
Why is that exactly?
It's a, side effect of the crystal. It produces so much magic that it actually alters the atmosphere around it for a certain radius. The radius is a little bit farther than the edge of the plateau. No one quite understands it yet. I haven't spent too much time studying it. I'm more into the medical sciences and magics, of course. But I do know it has been a point of frustration for some mages.
Frustrations for just doing your studies? Seems a bit unusual.
Frustrations because no one's been able to understand it yet. Though, not for lack of trying. The crystal is a bit of a marvel, really. I've been here, or at least in the area, some 300 years now. And still no one's quite cracked the secret yet. And I don't think it'll be for quite a long time.
that is a long time to be somewhere. That's a long time for almost anyone to be somewhere.
Indeed. Not so odd for a vampire in residence, I would think. And he says he says the words vampires in residence out in the open. Like, you are effectively like in the middle of a crowded bakery. Everyone is fine. Some people nod to him and say hi and blah blah blah, and it's just
That's a very normal thing around here.
Yep. Just a very normal thing. Yep, that's Venat the vampire. He just lives in town. He's a doctor. You know? That is the way it appears to be. And Venat finishes his croissant and he just says, well, would you need assistance? Or perhaps if you're looking for some work that the wardens have been a little bit wary to take lately, you stop by my office.
Of what kind? If you don't mind my asking.
A bit of a retrieval. But from an area that has questionable rates of survival.
Well, I suppose you wouldn't have asked me if it weren't such a thing. So that works. But also, I believe I owe you a walk. Although, if you don't mind, I do have a question for you.
Please. And he starts walking with you.
Do you just, me, by the way, walking with this person, sleeves in hand like this, because of course I am, you know, there was a certain thing you mentioned, magic signature, if you will, that you noticed me by. Is that just from having so many years of exposure to people who are lucid dreamers?
I had a dear friend. 250 years ago. They shared some of your abilities, and over time I've encountered a few others, and I've noticed to certain magical individuals, such as myself and others, over time you start to notice... How do I put it? You all have a certain vibrance to you. Brighter smiles, brighter eyes. My theory is you blur the boundaries between the imagined and the real so frequently that both become a bit more vivid due to your magic. You stand out a bit.
Are there other people who are able to see things the way that you do?
Oh, if you met someone with my particular age and experience, I'm sure they might put the same information together. Perhaps those with specific magical sight might be able to manage as well, though I'm quite unsure. However, this is my stop, unfortunately, and you've stopped outside a very small shop with a simple sign that has a standard caduceus twirled around a staff on it. And he just says, I have enjoyed meeting you, Rue. I do hope we get to talk some other time.
Well, considering how pleasant this meeting has been, I don't see why not. Especially since I'm on vacation.
Ah, well, you've selected a good place for it.
I think it would probably be better to say that this place chose me.
He grins at that and he just says, I'm quite aware of the feeling. Good day, Rue. And he slides a small iron key into the lock, unlocks the door, and steps inside.
And there's a like ever so like light or polite, huh? Good night for now. And then just walking back toward like the crowd and things and musing on the experience. Perhaps I should visit this person at some point. I mean, it's dangerous, but what else are we gonna do around here? People are in jail. It's not like we're leaving anytime soon. And as long as they don't do anything else or someone else doesn't come around here stealing a beacon, we're not gonna run into the Bane Horde or anything. And eventually they're going to send me out for supplies because I'm gonna eat up all their snacks.
You're not wrong. Eventually.
Eventually.
We are going to have a single more scene before I wrap up.
Oh no.
Danica.
Who's the unlucky victim?
Lovely.
Oh.
We're going to fast forward a little bit. The evening goes off without a hitch. You have your meal. Leo comforts you as best she can. And looks out for you. But you find yourself sleeping soundly. And you find yourself dreaming. What is it you would like to be dreaming of? And I will say the only thing I will add to this dream currently is that it is a pleasant dream. Take from that what you will.
Okay, so probably to decompress, she'd be in her, not the forge or the furnace, but she'd be in the usual place that's outside the door, which is just this field of wildflowers, looking up at like a sunset kind of colored sky and pinks and purples and oranges, just looking up, cloud watching.
And as you're sitting there watching, from behind you against the post of the door, you hear a slight knock. And a voice just calls out and says, "Am I interrupting?"
Just kind of scrambles, to sit up and look back.
As you see a familiar figure, you would see cloaked in greens and golds with golden hair that is not quite wild, but not quite tame either. It sort of just sweeps back of its own accord and over their ears and slightly in front of their eyes. Their eyes are a inhuman, bright, vibrant shade of green. And they come to you carrying what looks to be a bouquet of flowers. Not wildflowers, but something of a deep, kind of sapphire blue with a closed bulb, currently. Maybe almost like tulips, but not of any kind you've ever seen. And they just say, "I see you've finally found some rest."
If you can call it that, yeah.
Well, may I join you, Danica?
Sure. Kind of makes way for like an extra seat and scooches over.
They come over. Need to keep switching voices quickly. They come over and sit down next to you. And they pass you the bouquet. And they say, "I thought these might brighten things up a bit." And as you grab the bouquet, you see the bulbs all open once you touch them. And they are not, in fact, bulbs, but they are a set of butterflies that take off and start swirling around the two of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I could tell from the blade that you've been through a bit of a battle recently. Are you alright?
Physically, yeah.
Well, let me just assure you that for at least tonight, you'll dream well. Though, I do have work, so I can't stay for long. And they just tilt and, like, kind of rest their forehead against yours for a second.
I mean, I'll take what I can get.
And they just say, "You always create the most beautiful sunsets." And that is where we will call the evening.
Slight lore drops for both Danica and Alyssa, it seems.
I did warn you this would be an emotionally hitting session for Danica.
Nah, Crow said he was coming for y'all last week.
Crow did
That's
say,
absolutely what he
but
said.
Crow did not need to pull Alyssa into this. I was assuming this was just going to be all Danica punches.
Excuse me.
I got 2 hours to fill. So, thank you for watching, everyone who joined us. I'm so glad we could have a more downtimey emotional session like that. That was quite fun, in my opinion. And we have the option of multiple possible adventures going forward now. So, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to all of you for playing as well. And let's just go in overlay order. So it'll be Sin, Rainy, Ro, and Nins. Tell people where they can find you, how to find you, what you do, all the shenanigans.
Honestly speaking, y'all shouldn't do anything that I'm about to tell you. But if you want to watch me be on Twitch and stream multiplayer shenanigans, RPGs, and other story-related things, you can find me on Mondays and Tuesdays here at Syrinscape. You can also find me on Twitter at Syrinscape Beta, where you will find me talking about game design things and telling people not to be terrible, and or talking about other cool things that myself and my friends are doing. And that's everything from both me as Syrinscape and the character that I play, also known as Rue, who may or may not be luring themselves headlong into danger. Oh no.
It sounds like a Rue thing at this point. I mean, the tall buildings, the perches, so on and such forth. Hello, once again, I am Rainy. You can find me here at Twitch for Rainy Keys, where I stream art, the occasional game, and usually it's just chaotic screaming. You can also find me on Twitter at Raid Keys, where there's more of the chaotic screaming, but less frequent than my Twitch. I play the character Alyssa Vesper once again, and yeah, have a good night, y'all.
And I am Monroe. Y'all can catch me on Twitter at MonroeRow98. I'm an artist, I'm a game designer and a writer, working on some really cool projects right now, actually, that I'm really excited to be doing and be a part of. Yeah, and I play the wonderful Danica Dolcetta here. So thank you.
Hi, I've been late, but you can find me at Nimbins on Twitter. I appear in places, somewhere, sometimes. I do things, somewhere, sometimes. And I play the wonderful helpfulness that is Berry. Berry Supplesticks.
Love them very much.
And last but not least, I am Eric, aka Eldritch Crow. I've been your host for the evening. You can find me at Eldritch Crow on Twitter. I stream here every other Wednesday and then every Saturday and Sunday doing various things as well. And then on offset Wednesdays, you can find me on RPG Hours channel playing Routes Unknown with Rainy as well, where we play a Monster of the Week stream, which is quite fun. That said, as always, this episode is brought to you by RPG Hour and by Syrinscape, which I was using throughout the episode. So do go check both of them out along the way. You can find RPG Hour through the cast link as well. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and do have a wonderful week. And there we go.